Hello, I'm Pastor Bill Shults with Hungry Hearts Ministries. I want to thank you for watching, and I know you're probably going to see this later on YouTube because this is not a scheduled broadcast. I want to apologize for all of the technical issues we've had over the last month. It's been quite challenging to get this broadcast back up and running. Before I get into today's message, which is entitled Operation Rescue, I want to offer you Pursuit newsletter. This comes out every quarter. I know we've had a few issues more rapidly than that recently, but anyway, this is a quarterly publication. It's absolutely free of charge. If you will email me at hungryheartsmin@aol.com, then I will send this to you every quarter free, and we do so without charge. Also, we only use your address to send you this. We don't use it for anything else. So we don't sell them, we don't give them to anybody else, and we don't take advantage of you. Anyway, we've been talking about the rescue of the saints, and a lot of churches have gotten away from the rescue of the saints. For some reason, they don't want to talk about it. A lot of folks are now saying that everybody's going into Great Tribulation. And as we've mentioned before, in classical rapture theory, everybody who accepts Yeshua as Messiah is going to go into rescue. But there's a lot of Bible to contradict that, and that's why some people say there's no rescue at all. But there is plenty of Bible to say that some brethren, some Christians, some people who've accepted Yeshua are going to be rescued. So rather than take the position that no one's going to get rescued or that everybody's going to get rescued, why don't we just let the Word take care of it for us and sift out who is not getting rescued and who is getting rescued? Because it's very clear that some people are getting rescued. And this is according to the red letters of Jesus. Now, one of the things that people do is that they take all the verses that have to do with the return of the Lord and they all mash them together and say it's one return. On the other hand, his ascension was dual. He went up first to apply his blood to the Father's ark in heaven, and he went up a second time in the sight of many witnesses, and they all saw it happen. And when you come to the return of Christ, I have to ask, is he going to come down first to privately rescue those who he's going to prevent from going through the hour of trial? And is he going to come back in a public way thereafter? And the Bible's pretty clear that when he comes back to rule and reign, it's a very public event. A lot of public events have taken place. I've been spending a lot of time in Revelation, and some of these things that are prophesied to happen in the book of Revelation are very public. They're very there's no way to hide them. In other words, when you have 200-pound hailstones falling from the sky, no one's going to miss that. When you have all the waters in the earth turned to blood, no one's going to miss that. When you have giant mountains falling into the sea and a third of the ships get wiped out, no one's going to miss that. That's not a secret, sudden, and unannounced move there. Now, one of the things that's so insidious about this move in Sabbath church to do away with the rescue of the saints is that Sabbath brethren are the ones most likely to be rescued because we're keeping all of God's commandments. Now, Yeshua has rescued many people over the course of humanity: Noah, Lot, Enoch, Elijah, the three guys, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. There are a lot of people rescued. Daniel multiple times. Does anyone think that the Lord's arm is too short to rescue us? And I want to point out, in all of those cases, those taken were the ones rescued. Those left behind were the ones who suffered the tribulation of the day. Taken has always been for those who had the favor of God. Now I want to start in John 14, verse 3. Sorry about the echo, guys. I don't have a sound person today. He is talking as if he's a Jewish groom speaking to the bride at betrothal. And in John 14 and verse 3 he says this: if I go and prepare a place for you, which is the Jewish custom. The groom leaves the betrothal and he goes to prepare a bridal chamber for his wife. I will come back and take you, so to be with me, so that you also may be where I am. So where is he now? That's where we're going. He's going to take us. And this is very, very important. Now, is this possible to apply to the death of a saint? it is possible to apply that to the death of a saint. On the other hand, this word for taken, paralambano, is not typically applied in that way. And again, we're going to get into the verses now where Yeshua ascended into heaven in two parts, one secret and one very public. Will his return follow the same pattern? Now in John 20 in verse 17, he has newly resurrected, and he kind of lingers in the garden until Mary shows up. For some reason, he wanted Mary to see him, and for some reason, he wanted this to be recorded. So he tells Mary in verse 17, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet returned to the Father. Instead, go to my brothers and tell them I'm returning to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." So he is perfect from the resurrection. He is completely holy, and he does not want to be defiled, because he is about to do what the high priest is supposed to do on the Day of Atonement. That is, he is going to ascend in to heaven. He is going to take his blood and put it on the Father's ark in heaven. You know, in the high priest on the Day of Atonement, once he was washed with water, he couldn't be touched until after he had performed the ritual. And then after that, he would go and put on his other clothes, and he could come out and he could be touched again after that. So Yeshua is in this place that because of the resurrection, he is perfect now to go and perform the ceremony to make the atonement for you and I and all humanity. And he doesn't want to be touched. Now, down in verse 19, on the evening of that same first day of the week, when the disciples together and the doors locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came into the room, a locked room, and said, "This is me." He showed him his hands and his side. In Luke, it says, "Touch me and see that I have flesh and bones like you do." And he's proving to them that he is alive. Touch me. Put your finger in the holes of my hand. Put your hand in my side. See that it is me. And he stays with them for 40 days. Now, when you go back and you do what little research there is on these 40 days, he shows up and goes away. He shows up and goes away. Because as a resurrected God being now, he doesn't have to sleep. You know, before, when he was with them as a human teacher, a human rabbi, they would camp out together. If they were staying at someone's home, they'd slumber party in the living room. He was with them the whole time. But now that he doesn't need to sleep, now that he doesn't have a body that requires that rest, he's with them for the teaching part. He's off about his other business, running the universe. Now, in Acts chapter 1 and verse 9, just another page over, it says, "After he said this, he was taken up before their very eyes, and a cloud hid him from their sight." So in the sight of all who were there, he is taken up. And that word is analambano. So it's paralambano when he takes us. It's analambano when he goes up. So you had one ascension was private. One ascension was very public. Will his return be like this? Well, we're going to take a look at the public return of Jesus before we look at the private return of Jesus. And in the public return, we're going to go to Revelation chapter 1 and verse 7. And I did a little more research since I gave this on Sabbath. And this poem we're going to read in verse 7 is very definitely a compilation of several verses. Look, he's coming with the clouds. That's Daniel 7. Every eye will see him. That is something he said in Matthew. Even those who pierced him, from Isaiah, and all the peoples will mourn because of him. That is from Zechariah. So shall it be. Amen. So he's coming in the clouds, in the sky. Every eye is going to see him. Every eye. So I don't know if he travels around the earth or is in one place and waits for it to come around. All those who pierced him, meaning everybody, because we all sinned, we all pierced him, and all the peoples of the earth will mourn because of him. It is very clear this return is not secret. It is very public. Now let's go to Daniel 7 and look at that one passage, or one of the passages from which that little poem is extracted. Daniel 7, verse 13 and 14. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man coming with the clouds of heaven. So there's where you get that first part. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All peoples, nations, and men of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom one that will never be destroyed. So this is a ceremony that takes place in the upper atmosphere of the earth, where the Father is going to bestow on Yeshua all the titles right before he comes back down to earth to put down the rebellion and assert military control over this earth. And he is given all governing authority. First, he is given authority, and then he's given sovereign power. And so those are important words. Now we're going to go all the way to the back of Revelation, in Revelation 19. Let's just put it this way. After the first 10 minutes of his return, no one's going to challenge him again. In Revelation 19 and verse 11, it says, I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse whose rider is called Faithful and True. With justice he judges and makes war. His eyes are like blazing fire, and on his head are many crowns. Actually, every crown. Every single royal authority that's ever been bestowed on this earth to any entities, he's got them all. He has a name written on him that no one knows but he himself. He's dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. So this is the pre-incarnate name of Jesus, the Word of God, making clear beyond all doubt that he was God before he was Jesus, he's God after he's Jesus, excuse me, and that this is not, he's not just a man. A lot of people are looking for a human Messiah. It is our God who died in our place and is coming back to rule. The armies of heaven were following him, riding on white horses and dressed in fine linen, white and clean. So there's a ceremony, and then he's coming back to Kavash, all the powers of this world. It is very public. Make no mistake about it. When the heavens roll back like a scroll and the armies come down with Jesus and he's leading the charge, no one's going to mistake this. No one's going to say, well, I missed it. Oh, maybe that was only thunder. None of that's going to happen. That may happen when we're taken out of here, but no one's going to miss the return of Jesus to rule and reign. Now, in Zechariah 12 is another passage from which the poem in Revelation 1 was taken. Zechariah is is the book of Revelation in the Old Testament, essentially. Zechariah 12, you have the place where everybody will mourn. Everybody will mourn. Zechariah 12 and verse 10, and I will pour out on the house of David. Excuse me. These are the people in Jerusalem. These are the people in the Jewish state of Israel. This is in our future. He's going to pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, excuse me, a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me. So again, he said, every eye will see, and he's saying that all the people in the nation of Israel are going to look on him. And they will look on me, the one they've pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and grieve bitterly for him as one grieves for a firstborn son. So this is very public. They're going to see. It's kind of hard to be secret when they're looking at you, and they're going to be watching him. So it's not going to be a secret return. Matthew 24 and verse 30, again, talking about the public return of Jesus to rule and reign. Matthew 24 and verse 30, it says, at that time the Son of Man is going to appear in the sky. So I'm not sure what this sign is. It's not really defined anywhere. But this sign is going to appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. That's right out of Zechariah 12. And they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. So they're going to see. They're going to see. Very public. But Yeshua also told us that his return would be secret, sudden, and unannounced. Many times he said, I'm going to show up like a thief in the night, completely taking you by surprise. Well, how can you do that when the sign appears in the sky? When the last of the plagues in book of Revelation is at the end of Revelation 16 when you have 100-pound hailstones coming down out of the sky with fire. So 100-pound hailstones coming down out of the stratosphere with fire, no one's going to miss that. That is going to be completely open. No one's going to miss. Now in Revelation 16 and verse 15, he tells us that his return is going to be secret, sudden, and unannounced. In Revelation 16 verse 15, he says, "Behold, I come like a thief." Thieves don't knock. "Hey, it's Mr. Thief. Come in. We'll take your stuff." Blessed is he who stays awake. And that's a theme that goes through a lot of the other verses where Yeshua is telling us to watch. Watch. Stay on the watch. Keep your clothes with him so that he may not go naked and be shamefully exposed. Now, there's a whole story behind that. If a guard was caught sleeping, they stripped him naked and burned his clothes to embarrass him for falling asleep when he's supposed to be on watch. But that's another whole thing. So this is pretty secret, like a thief in the night. Now, in Revelation 3 and verse 3, in the letter to the Sardis church, he says, "Remember, therefore, what you've received and heard, obey it and repent. But if you do not wake up, I will come like a thief, and you will not know at what time I come to you." So there's a coming that is going to be secret, and we're not going to know. And he's going to repeat this over and over again. And again, the return to rule is about as public as it can be made. Every eye is going to see. But there's another return that it is very clear no one is going to know. No one is going to know. Now, I've been studying the book of Revelation, and as certain events happen, you will know. 2 more events, Jesus is cracking that sky. 1 more event, Jesus is cracking that sky. The hailstones are falling, Jesus is cracking that sky. But when it comes to the return to rescue the saints, it's secret, sudden, unannounced. You will not know the day. You will not know the hour. I'm going to take you by surprise. Well, he's pretty clear about that, actually. So Matthew 24. Matthew 24 is a great chapter. If you understand Matthew 24, you can understand everything else in this book. Matthew 24, and starting in verse 42. He says, "Therefore keep watch." That's what he just said in Revelation 16. Keep watch. "Because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." So we're not going to know the day. But understand this. If the owner of the house had known at what time of night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch. So if you know the thief is coming at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're going to make sure you're up at 2 o'clock and you got all your stuff together. When he breaks in the door, you're going to blow him back out. Would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man, you got to be ready. Because the Son of Man is going to come at an hour when you don't expect him. So he's telling you, you're not going to know the day, and you're not going to know the hour. You're going to be completely caught off guard, and you're not going to know. And you know, before I did this last round of a 6-month study, I would have bet you any amount of money that he was coming back on Pentecost. Just the way I would have done it. Watch. He says that a lot. Watch. Don't miss it. Are you watching? You know, a lot of people don't want to look at the news anymore. All the news depresses me. Well, it's not very pleasant. But he's telling you to watch. So are you not going to watch? You know, it's easy for the world system to move on down the road when you're not paying any attention to it. And we kind of get caught up in our own lives and we don't pay. But that's exactly what he said in Luke 21 was, don't let the dissipation. So people have made up all kind of things for dissipation. Dissipation comes from the word dissipate, which means to dilute it out. So don't let your life dilute out your watching what's going on in the world. You got to watch. You got to keep your eyes on focus, because that's how you stay ready. When you see things happening, that's how you know, I got to stay ready. Don't miss it. Yeshua's coming is going to be secret, sudden, and unannounced, and he's telling us straight out, we will not know. Now in Luke 12, he doubles down on this coming like a thief in the night. Luke 12, verse 39. Understand this. If the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready. We got to be ready. You don't know when Yeshua is going to come to rescue the saints. You have to be ready. Now, I'm not going to take the digression into the ancient Jewish wedding, but that was also a theme that the bride would go and make herself ready. So the groom goes to prepare the place, the bridal chamber, and that's what that word means, by the way. And the bride would go to make herself ready for the wedding. I don't think many Christians in America understand that we're supposed to be getting ready. Actually, we should already be ready. Because the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect him. So when a set of verses contradict, that's a place to study and dig. Clearly, his coming is both public, as in your face, and clearly his coming is going to be secret like a thief in the night. So which is it? Well, the only way I can square that is that the return to rescue the bride is going to be secret, sudden, and unannounced, because that fits with all the verses that go with those things, and that his public return is going to be every eye will see, because that's what fits with the verses that go with those things. Luke chapter 21, verse 36, coming back to the watch, but he says something in addition this time. Luke 21 and verse 36. Be always on the watch and pray. But he tells you what to pray for. He doesn't say always be on the watch and always pray about whatever. He tells you to pray that you may be worthy to escape. King James says accounted worthy to escape. Now I know the NIV doesn't say that, but I did look up those words. And worthy is a Greek word that means deemed entirely deserving. Pray that you be counted, and that counting goes back to Ephesians 1 and verse 10 like we covered last time, worthy. Pray that you be counted, deemed entirely deserving. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm watching the news, and I'm looking at what's going on out here in the world, and it seems to me that the single most important priority that everybody in the Sabbath world needs to have is to be deemed entirely deserving at this time, right now in 2024. Deemed entirely deserving. Be always on the watch and pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen. So this is not only the Great Tribulation, it's the time period of Jacob's trouble before it and the wrath of the Father after it. All that is about to happen, so that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. When are you going to do this standing? You're going to do this standing at the wedding. You're going to do this standing when you're encompassing him about 3 times. And we kind of rehearse this on the Feast of Trumpets. Matthew 24 and verse 3. At the very beginning of the discourse here, the disciples asked Jesus, what's the sign? What's the sign? Aren't we asking the same thing every day? What's the sign? How will we know when? He's already told you you're not going to know when, but he starts out by saying this, watch. Watch. So over and over again he keeps saying watch. Stay on your guard. Pay attention to what's going on. Watch what's happening. Dig in here to compare what you see out there with what's in this book. But he adds, not just watch for anything, watch out no one deceives you. I've been sitting here in Sabbath church since 1986. I have never seen such a blizzard or a flood of heresies. One was that last Sabbath we were going to have a snap, the New Madrid was going to snap and devastate the center of the country. They compared the hailstorms from these thunderstorms in Texas over the last 2 weeks with the hailstones that were done in the plagues of Egypt. I mean, this is crazy talk. Now, there's plenty of hailstones in the book of Revelation. There's like 3 or 4 different sets of massive hailstorms. But they have events preceding them that any casual observer would be able to see out here. And they haven't happened yet. For instance, one of the first things that happened is that the mountain, the blazing mountain, as it puts in Revelation, wormwood, falls into the ocean. There is a hailstorm that brings blood. It turns the waters into blood. None of this has happened yet. I mean, you have a lot of things that happen before you see those events, but people are trying to make it. And then another one that came up, what was that? Is if you don't use certain sacred names, then you're actually worshiping the devil. And somebody sent a meme across my feed the other day that actually showed people dressed in robes worshiping a statue of what they perceive the devil to be. And they're saying if you don't use certain Hebrew names that you are doing that. I mean, this is crazy stuff. I've never seen such nutty stuff. And this is a person that I used to believe was sound. So watch out that nobody deceives you on this crazy talk. It's not whether you say Yeshua or Jesus that determines whether you're going to be deemed entirely deserving. It's how well you live up to the commandments. It's how well you can treat people. Do you love people? Especially in the household of faith. I digress. So Yeshua is telling us to pray to be able to escape. Now, how can that be bad? I mean, I've seen people that have posted memes that saying that the true patriots for the kingdom of God run to the tribulation. The rescue is not about running away from your obligations. It's about meeting them now rather than waiting till later. We're supposed to be deemed entirely deserving. That means we're supposed to have such holy lives. We say it in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. There's no such thing in Hebrew as hallowed be thy name. The Hebrew is Yit Kadesh Shemka. It means I will make the name of God holy by laying my life down as a martyr. But there's a secondary meaning that in lieu of martyrdom, I will live such a pure and holy life. It's in lieu of martyrdom. So deemed entirely deserving is about living that holy life. Now, I've been teaching it as long as I've been teaching, that we have to live by the standards of a priest from the book of Leviticus. Recently saw Bill Cloud teach on the same thing. I've been teaching this the whole time I've been doing ministry. We have to live up to the requirements of a priest because we're a chosen nation, a royal priesthood. We're supposed to be a holy people. That's deemed entirely deserving. So deception is rampant this day. So let me ask you, what would be the point of a rescue if it happens after everybody's killed? That would be no point at all. What is the point of being accounted worthy, deemed entirely deserving, if you're going into tribulation and be killed anyway? See, this is the deception which is sweeping the Sabbath world. Oh, we're going to live a half-holy life, not quite good enough. You see, the Apostle Paul, and we're going to get there in a minute, he tells us that we need to encourage each other with the words he wrote about the rescue. Jesus talked about the rescue, but Jesus put it in what I would call parable form, where he's giving you one verse about this and one verse about that, verse to verse to verse to verse. You got to separate them out and line up the verses that go together. That takes a little skill. Amen. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm okay at it. I'm okay enough to present you a clear picture, but I'm good enough that I don't go running after every wind of doctrine that blows through the church and that every heresy that runs everybody off to extremes. I kind of, being in the middle of the road might not be a very effective tool in politics, but it's a whole lot better tool in Bible study to not run after extreme positions unless you've got enough Bible to back them up. At that point, they're not extreme anymore. But if you're building everything off the wing of a verse, now in Revelation 19:11, who are those armies dressed in white? Well, back in the worldwide church, we used to teach that those were the angels. Jesus is coming back with an army of angels. But in verse 8 of Revelation 19, it says that the fine linen stands for the righteous acts of the saints. So how can you come out of heaven wearing white linen, riding on a white horse if you ain't already there? Now, I came up in the worldwide system. Great system. I wish many of you could have been there with us. It was fantastic. It was phenomenal in its time. None other than the evangelist, Dr. Richard Ames, came to the same conclusion I did, that the place of safety has to be in heaven, because we're coming out of heaven dressed in white linen and riding on white horses. Now, it's just my belief, and I think I'm entitled to my opinion, that we get those white garments at the judgment seat of Christ. At the bema judgment of Christ, I think we get our white garments. And that's why we have them there. So we're not alone in the churches of God to think that the place of safety is in heaven. But I'm going to tell you, a lot of the churches of God have gotten away from the doctrine of the place of safety. And I can explain to you why. They're no longer living up to the requirements. We're not living as well as we did in Worldwide. Now, in addition to living as well as we did in Worldwide, we should receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Again, another rabbi trail, but it's clear in Matthew 25, which is the next chapter, by the way, that is something that we need. Now, Matthew 24 and verse 31, he talks about the rescue of the saints. In chapter 24, verse 30, it's the public return. In verse 31, it's the private return. He will send his angels with a loud trumpet call. They will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. All right, so without getting too deep into this, you've got four angels who control the four winds, and from one end of the earth to the other, and then he says from one end of the heavens to the other. What's he talking about there? Those who've died and gone on. They're spirits with God now. So those who've died and gone on are going to be gathered along with our gathering. Interesting word study in the New Testament on gather. It always refers to the rescue. And I could go on here about the fig tree, and there's a lot of stuff about the fig tree. The fig tree always represents the Jewish people, the Jewish state of Israel and the Holy Land. And he's talking about the fig tree. So when you see all this going on with the fig tree, you know that the rescue is right at the door. And we see all this going on with Israel right now in the Holy Land. But I don't want to take that digress. But down in verse 36, he goes on, no one knows about the day or the hour. So we're not going to guess the day or the hour. We might get in a range. Let's just call it a range. I don't like to talk about dates. I don't want to set dates, but there is a range of time. Now, a lot of people think that Jesus ascended into heaven 30 AD. Some people think it's 31 AD. Some people think it's 32 AD. Some people say it could be 29 AD. I don't have access, nor am I fluent in ancient languages enough to figure that out. But I don't have to. Because if you take the earliest date and the latest date and call it a range, what happens if Jesus doesn't come back in that time frame? You know, I don't want to peg it and say, oh, he's coming back right here and be discredited. I'm not ready to retire. So let's just say that the range 29 AD to 32 AD is the range of his possible ascension to heaven. Now, there's a verse in Hosea, the Lord is going to turn his face from us for 2 days, but on the third day he will raise us. Okay, so people are using that to say Yeshua's going to be gone for 2,000 years, and they're not dating it from his birth, they're dating it from his ascension. Okay, great. I don't have a quarrel with any of that. Haven't done a study on it to come in and teach that to you, but I'm just telling you what's going on right now. Had my pastor friend Billy Baumgartner up in Cedar Grove tell me about it. Bill Clouds talked about it extensively. Perry Stone's talked about it. I mean, I've read the verses. So that would put a possible date range of 2029 to 2032. Okay, let's just call that a time frame or a range of dates where there's a greater possibility. I think it's more like a probability, but either way, you got a range where you got a window of time that Yeshua could come back. For my grandkids' sake, I would like to see that extended. On the other hand, if the world keeps going on the way it is now, if there's no revival in the United States, if people don't turn back to God in the Bible, then bring it on now. Nonetheless, he's telling us we're not going to know the day or the hour. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. So again, without getting too deep into the ancient Jewish wedding, not sure we'll do that before Pentecost, we might. But the father of the groom is the one that tells him when to go get his bride. The groom doesn't decide. The place is ready. The servants of the groom don't say, hey, we got it all down, it's ready, go get her. It's only the father can tell the groom when to get his bride and bring her to the wedding. And so this is an allusion to that. As it was in the days of the son of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Now, there's a lot of people who are taking that verse and they're really running with it, and they're saying there's going to be giants in the last days, there's going to be this, there's going to be that, there's going to be yonder, all because these were extant in the days of Noah. Well, I'm not going to take the rabbi trail. I'm just kind of watching the evidence they're producing or lack thereof and just kind of watching it. Who knows if that will happen or not. But Jesus said, for in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. In other words, life went on as normal. I think in Luke he says buying and selling. Life is going on as normal until Noah goes into the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. This is how it's going to be at the coming of the Son of Man. So we already showed that when he comes back to rule, it's going to be public. You're going to know when those 7 trumpets start blowing, all these horrible things start happening. When the plagues are poured out, the horrible things are happening. No one's going to be buying and selling, marrying and giving in marriage. People are going to be running for their lives, fearful, killing and being killed. Food is going to be a priority. It's not going to be, the public return is not secret, sudden, and unannounced. But here he's telling you everything's going to go on like normal until the day it happens and it's gone. And then he says this, 2 men will be in the field, one will be taken, one will be left. That taken is paralambano, the same word we read in John 14. I'm going to paralambano you to me. And here he says 2 men are going to be in the field. I'm going to paralambano one, and I'm going to aphia me the other. And aphia is translated divorce 3 times in the New Testament, including when Joseph was going to put Jesus' mother Mary away when he found her with child. He was going to aphia me her quietly. 2 women grinding with a hand mill, one paralambanoed, one aphia me. Therefore keep watch, because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. So no one can know. Life's going to go on as always. Scoffers are going to scoff. They already are. People are going to argue. They never stop. Then without warning, paralambano one, aphia me the other. Now, let's look at Paul. Paul, we're going to close it out with a couple verses from Paul. 1 Thessalonians. Many scholars think that this is his first letter. You know, Paul was one, as he called it, one abnormally born. He was not with the other 12, the others of the 12, but he was taught by Jesus separately, and he goes into that detail. In 1 Thessalonians 4 and verse 16 it says, for the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, the voice of the archangel, the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first. After that, we who are alive and are left will be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. So we will be with the Lord forever. Therefore, encourage each other with these words. So as we see this bad stuff happening, we need to encourage each other. We're getting rescued. We're getting rescued. We should encourage each other. You need to live up to the standard of God, because we're going to get rescued if you do. Come on, we need to get this. Tighten up on your Sabbath observance. Make sure your tithing is straight. Follow the dietary laws. Now, look, I understand we can't always fix that living out there. Make sure your holy day observance is good. Make the holy days big and important. Make the holy days the biggest celebration of the year. One of the reasons that we have problems evangelizing is that the world celebrates its holidays on a much grander scale than we celebrate the holy days. It needs to be the biggest, most festive time of our life. This is what Yeshua said in Matthew 24. The loud command, the trumpet call of God, going to gather the elect. This is what's going to happen. Now I want you to look at the next verse down here in chapter 5 and verse 1. Now, brothers, about times and dates we do not need to write to you, for you know very well that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. Okay, well, we showed you the public return is not like a thief, but there's a private return that's like a thief in the night. He said, when people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly. In other words, life goes on as normal. People are buying and selling, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. Everything's all okay. And then, bam, destruction will come on them suddenly. This destruction takes place when we're taken out. When the bride is pulled out of here, then game over. The destruction begins. Let's go to Matthew 24 real quick. We'll hold your place here. We're coming right back. Matthew 24. I started teaching the rescue in 2005 at the Sabbatarian Church of God in Skyline, Mississippi, just outside of Tupelo. And back in those days, we had tapes. This is before the CD era. Now we all have to do podcasts. But I started teaching this a long time ago. I did 2 90-minute tapes with a lunch break in the middle. And I've been teaching this a long time. This is real stuff. I wrote a book on it, Come Away With Me. We're kind of out of the local copies, but if you go on to Amazon.com, this book is not only available to you as a book, it's also available as an audio book. And you can download this, I think, for $10. And I go through a lot more proofs. And that book was written in 2009. This is an old teaching. Not that it changes any. I mean, the Bible stays true. But I could update this. God willing, I will. I've got another book to write. I'm kind of working on it now about the Holy Days. But when I'm done with the Holy Day book, I may get a chance to rewrite Come Away With Me. And it will be a lot more extensive because I've uncovered. The Lord has shown me a lot more verses. You go reading along and like, whoa, look at that verse, son. Bam. Whoa, yeah, it's a rescue verse. So in Matthew 24 and verse 29, it says, immediately after the distress of those days, the sun will be dark and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky. The heavenly bodies will be shaken. This is several times in Revelation. Several times in Revelation. Including one time in Revelation for right after the rescue of the saints. It's game on. We have a lot more to say, but we're going to close with 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 4. This is a verse that's often misused. But you, brothers, are not in darkness so that this day should surprise you like a thief. You're not in darkness. The coming time of trouble should not surprise you like a thief. We will not know the day or the hour. He's already told us he's going to come on a day and at an hour we don't expect. The point about not being surprised is that none of us should be caught unaware. None of us should be caught unprepared, because he's told us a lot more times than we read today to keep watch, to keep your life together, to keep your stuff. Now, we talked about a date range of 2029 to 2032. May happen in that time frame, may not happen in that time frame. I've told everybody, as long as I've been teaching, manage your money like you're going to live out your days to great old age. Manage your life like Yeshua's going to blow the shofar tomorrow. Or maybe this afternoon would be a good day. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you for putting up with all of the problems that we've had getting this done. I want to encourage you to get our newsletter Pursuit. If you'll email me at hungryheartsmin@aol.com, we'll get this right out to you. This is the Pentecost issue, by the way, longing for Jesus. And I want to remind you that we have a great Feast of Tabernacles celebration coming up in October 16 through 24. We'll be keeping the Feast of Tabernacles. We got a great hall. We got a great lineup, and we're going to have one tremendous celebration in the Lord. Thank you so much for watching. I'm hoping that this Sabbath everything is the way it's supposed to be. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.